So that last video that we just saw, I actually was just recommended it while I was watching the overview video that you'll see later on. But I mean, as you can see, it's kind of about a more visual representation of God speaking to us in our day-to-day lives. And even if it isn't something as obvious as a literal post-it note, it can be something as obvious as him kind of speaking through someone to you, or speaking through the actions of someone or some people or something, It can be as something as obvious as that. And at first when I watched it, because I was just recommended it, I thought, hey, it's a good video, I'll put it in the playlist, it's just kind of a good video to get people thinking. And then I met up with Alan, one of the other leaders, a few days ago, and he actually showed me, he was like, no, there is a link to it, because like the fact that God wants to speak to us so much, and the fact that he loves us so much that he still to this day wants to talk to us, is such an amazing thing. And it's like it shows he's still with us, and it shows that he's still actively trying to talk to us, and that and trying to help us through kind of the murky waters of life as such, which to me is absolutely amazing. And I mean, to me it kind of shows what kind of person Jesus was when he lives on the earth, and what kind of a God that God is. And to me it shows how amazing that he is the creator of everything, and yet he still wants to just sit down and talk to us, kind of thing, like I said earlier. And yeah, it's just incredible to me. But just as a quick wee thing just now, if you pause the video once I'm finished explaining this, you can write down your answers. So I kind of want you to think, what kind of good qualities do you see in people like your friends and your family and all this? Kind of write those down, and then afterwards think of what kind of qualities does Jesus have, and write them down as well. And then I'll come back and I'll give my thoughts on it, and then we'll continue with the session. So if you pause the video just now, and then go ahead and do the kind of write them down, and then we'll come back afterwards and we'll kind of see what he's found out. So welcome back. Hopefully you've kind of played the video again. So for me, obviously, like, I'll be talking about the qualities of Jesus, but I hope you've got your answers there with you. And by the way, I should mention as well, we have a Zoom call on Sundays, about 7:45ish we aim to start. So if you could come along to that, would actually encourage you to bring along your answers as well, so we can discuss them and we can kind of just see what you thought. Because I mean, as much as I can give my answers now, you can't give your answers through a screen. So yeah, we would very much encourage you to come along to the Zoom meeting on Sunday, and then we'll be able to have a proper chat with you about it. So definitely come and join us then. So yeah, for me, I mean, quality number one is that Jesus is loving. He is the most loving being that has ever lived and that will ever live. He gave his life on a cross for us. He was that loving. And even today, if you think of any idea of what love is, Jesus encapsulates that completely. Jesus is love. God is love. So for me, that's number one. God is love. Jesus is love. So God is loving and Jesus is loving. Number two is he's compassionate. Not only is he loving, but he's compassionate. When we come to him with our problems, he sits there and he says, okay, this is how you're going to get through it, and I'm going to be with you all the time. He doesn't just give us the solution and then go off and do his own thing. He sits down and he says, no, we're going to get through this together. Not you're going to get through this, we're going to get through this. Which just shows how much of a compassionate being he is. Now, the third one I got as well was he's a servant. He didn't just come to this earth to lead us and to kind of elevate himself to a status above us all. He was with the people and he was part of the people. He was a servant to all of us and he served us, and he still does today. Like, he was praised as a great teacher, obviously, and deservedly so, but he made sure to teach the servants how to do their job, because he did it himself. He didn't just say to them, do this, do that. He went and did it himself. Excuse me. And that was how they learned how to do their jobs and how to serve him as well, how to just serve in general. So it's incredible. And for me, the last one I got was he is forgiving. I've got the verse here, Luke 23 verse 34. Jesus was on the cross and he proclaims to God, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they have done. He's bleeding on the cross, giving his life for us. And he's saying to God, don't punish them, forgive them. They don't know what they've done. And for me, that's so incredible. I don't know anyone that would do that this today. Or I don't know anyone that will ever do that apart from Jesus, which shows just how much of an incredible person he is, not just to be in a relationship with, but to follow for the rest of our lives. It's incredible for me. So if you have been watching our previous sessions, you'll know that last week we went over Colossians with Amy, talking about like different influences, not just in our lives, but just kind of in general. You know, today's day and age, you're like influenced by stuff without even knowing about it. And if you struggle with stuff like just like where you or you don't know even where your influences come from, I would very much recommend going back and watching last week's one with Amy. It was a very good session, I must admit. And yeah, it goes over stuff like that, but it also goes over the kind of more where should we try and be searching to get our influences from? Where should we actively be trying to get them from as well? Which is also a very good subject. So, would definitely recommend going and giving that one a watch. So tonight, like I said, I'll be going over Philippians with you guys, and just how to be more kind of Christ-like in our lives, which not only is an important thing, is not only an important way for us to live if we want to make it to heaven one day, but also an important way to teach other people about God and show other people who God is. If we're more Christ-like in our lives, then people will kind of eventually be like, oh, you know, you're different, kind of thing. You know, you seem like you have something that I don't. What is that? And you can say, well, it's God, and there's your kind of invitation to start speaking to them. So I'm glad you've tuned in tonight. I hope you enjoyed this session, and we'll get started just now. So a little bit of backstory just before we watch the summary video for Philippians. Philippians is the letter that Paul writes to Philippi while he's on house arrest after he was arrested, and it's a very important place to Paul because it was actually the first place in Europe to have a church founded by, well, that Paul founded in AD 50. So it's a very important place to him, but it was never, you know, it's not always been very accepting of people like Paul. When Paul was in Philippi preaching that God was the one true king, as a very loyal Roman kind of city, as was Ephesus a few weeks ago, they often rebuked him and said, no, this isn't true, and kind of drove him out of the city. But we'll hear more about the video, or about this in the video. So I know the video is about 9 minutes or so long, but I do encourage you to kind of watch through the whole thing because there's a lot of very important points brought up in it, and I kind of want you to take as much as you can out of it. So please do stick with it. Very highly encourage you to stick with it, and then we'll see you after the video.